In this video, we'll be taking a further look at Chapter 8 of Beyoncé's visual album, Lemonade, Forgiveness. Our thesis for this chapter is Beyoncé's spiritual awakening through the use of dynamic camera angles, emotive imagery, and cacophonous diction to illustrate the breaking of the conscious curse that many African Americans abide to, illustrating that perseverance often conquers wrath. To start off, let's first take a look at some historical background. Beyoncé's grandparents lived in New Orleans, Louisiana, which is located in the South, known as the Belt of Slavery. In the South, there are strong opinions about African Americans and their rights as citizens. In Beyoncé's Lemonade, she often mentions a curse, which is one brought upon when her ancestors were slaves. Throughout her album, she becomes vocal in regards to feminism, the rights of African Americans, but specifically focuses on giving voice to independent Black women and their culture.
Historically, the Seneca Falls Convention was the first women's rights movement that set the precedent for the decades of women's suffrage, eventually reaching the point in which the triumphant adoption of the 19th Amendment extended democratic voting rights to women. But women were still viewed as housewives and were given duties that didn't give them the same opportunities as males. Furthering this minority, African Americans had to go through a similar struggle as they embarked on a civil rights journey, eventually gaining the right to vote in the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that changed the status of African Americans throughout the South.
However, guys, did this not erase the decades of abomination towards blacks and women? You'll begin to recognize that in Lemonade, Beyoncé illustrates a paradigm of this injustice by representing the strength and power of blacks with her juxtaposition of conventional femininity with violent destruction. Through the various identities she takes on throughout the chapters, she fights for the empowerment of Black women. Through a depiction of multiple identities, she vocalizes to represent a diverse group of women, particularly Black women. Although she captures this throughout extended metaphors and visuals, her protagonist seeks to answer the question of Black justice.
The chapter starts off with a black and white image of two females before the water on a beach. The image is overturned and appears upside down, which goes to show that their marriage shouldn't have taken this route, or in greater context, this path of injustice isn't right and socialization of all people should be encouraged. The black and white contrast depicts a sort of somber mood and tone to show the moment of grief before a journey of healing commences. The beach symbolizes death, but not the one that is terminal, rather the death of her departing soul as she goes through a state of renewal and rebirth.
As Beyoncé stands before the water, she is seeking for her soul to be cleansed just as Jesus did when he was baptized in the river. The shadows that hide behind the two females represent a lurking of darkness and blocking of light. This darkness finds its roots in betrayal, exploitation, negatory, and impotence that Beyoncé faced as Jay-Z cheated on her in their marriage.
However, it also represents all the aforementioned towards blacks, as they were seen as objects and economic assets rather than humans. In the next scene, the camera pans out as it shows the feet of Beyoncé washed up on the shore. Following this visual, there is a sight of a willow tree, which portrays belonging, hope, and healing. She possesses hope as she enters a stage of healing when her and the other woman hold and raise their hands in the air, not only freeing themselves of their past culture of slavery, but their feet in the water revealed their new beginning of recovery and coming to terms with reality.
She says, "Baptize me now," that reconciliation is possible, which is the harmony that now can be created between her and Jay-Z, or blacks in society, as well as those who were formerly enslaved or have enslaved ancestors, reconciling with Southern opinions and maltreatment. The glorious healing that she speaks of is seen when her body is washed up on the shore. Her arms reach out to her side just as Jesus' body was crucified on the cross. Her old self dies for the sins of Jay-Z's infidelity and those who sinned by exploiting slaves and treating them with malice.
Her rebirth and revival is the contemporary version of herself, embodying an identity of someone who is forgiving and patient, just as Jesus was forgiving to all those who sinned and sacrificed himself for his people. She reflects, "Do you remember being born? Are you thankful for the hips that cracked?" As the women stand in the water and hold hands, as some Catholics do in church, the water serves as a catalyst of life. The women stand tall and proud as they unite in a sense of community and fellowship.
Beyoncé expresses, "If I were gonna heal, let it be glorious." 1,000 girls raise their arms. The healing that she speaks of is healing from a generational culture, and the ravaging of its breaks the curse that Beyoncé mentions. There is a curse that will be broken.
She and the woman feel empowered as they freely cleanse their souls, departing from a cultural prison that was laid on the foundation of slavery and despotism.
They liberate themselves from the discrimination that represses them. They will heal from the cultural prison that they drown in by welcoming new beginnings and moving forward despite obstacles and disrespect being thrown their way.
What they leave behind as they welcome a journey of healing is the past and the woes that came with the deplorable and dreadful events. Beyoncé is not only healing from Jay-Z being unfaithful, but she and the other women are also healing from the injustice they have received from a past of slavery involving African Americans and the stereotyping of women. She emphasizes glory and healing to pose a positive connotation, as in to say that their healing needs to depart from a path of jealousy, envy, and resentment.
The only way to truly heal and for that healing to be glorious is to leave behind and wash away grudges and vexation.
This healing is also glorious because there are a multitude of diverse women that raise their arms to feel themselves, be empowered and proud to be a Black woman. The healing is glorious because Black women are standing up for themselves and advocating for change in the way that they are treated and disrespected. They even wear a flowy white dress to represent a transition from purity to passion.
It illustrates how the women are fighting to find their life and voice and to blend in the flowing sensation of water and serenity. Moreover, the water is soon contrasted and juxtaposed by the fire burning in the home. Rather than being a symbol of destruction, in this context, it is a symbol of rebirth and resurrection. Her soul was purified and awaits forgiveness. This scene shifts to a colored image which contrasts the previous black and white clips, representing a shift from a somber and dull mood to an accepting and welcoming warmth. As Beyoncé walks, leaving behind footprints, it symbolizes the existence and presence of a new and cleansed, forgiving soul. As she says, the deep velvet of your mother and her mother and her mother, it pans to an image of a cracked bowl, which is the art of kintsugi. With the crack being fixed and mended with gold, it depicts the embracement of flaws and imperfections and the treatment of breakage and repair as a part of a beautiful history of an object rather than something to be disguised.
Beyoncé and Jay-Z's relationship has flaws due to adultery, but the gold is a symbol of restoration in their relationship and the disrespect towards Black women. Powerful women are shown through the ancestor picture frame and the disc album. Furthermore, the scene shifts from the outdoors to the indoors, setting up a warm interior that is welcoming. Beyoncé begins to play the piano, which sets up a mellow atmosphere resembling with degradation of slavery and the strength and dignity of those who were enslaved. However, it also shows the vulnerability and rawness of the relationship through the absence of and spareness of furniture. As Beyoncé begins to play the piano, it is a sign of her welcoming and beginning a new life.
It then shows white flowers that are slowly dying, which represents the fragility of their relationship after Jay-Z cheated on her. It represents the clinging to their relationship and how the marriage is slowly failing. But then the scene shifts to an image of child drawings, representing how their daughter is the only thing that keeps them in union. As she continues to sing, there's the sight of a watch and a key, representing how the key to healing is time.
She sings, "We built sandcastles that washed away," showing how because they are transient, the waves wash over it is to build too close to the shore. This shows the foundation of the relationship and the vulnerability. She then continues to sing that every promise doesn't work out that way, showing how they both broke a promise. Jay-Z cheated on his wife, yet she stays with him, dispelling and disobeying their vows. She no longer pledges to leave him, rather she accepts that despite not every promise being kept, the relationship can still last and evolve. She then proceeds to sing, "Dishes smashed on my counter from our last encounter, picture snatched out the frame, I scratched out your name and face." This illustrates her last bit of resentment prior to her willingness to resolve the infidelity. She gets rid of the physical presence of Jay-Z, but she struggles to let him go emotionally and hold sentiment.
Consequently, there is a scene in which Beyoncé turns her face away from Jay-Z as he looks at her. The camera angle is panned in closely, which is ironic considering there seems to be such a great distance between them here. She can't even make eye contact with him as he asks her to forgive him. With the image of their silhouette, they have a deep and intimate moment, but it is one of confrontation as they stand side by side. When they embrace one another and he comforts Beyoncé, it is her sign of forgiving her. The public is not aware of their repair relationship. They reciprocate a parallel hurt of their relationship that had crumbled but is now being rebuilt. This also symbolizes Beyoncé forgiving those who disrespected women and slaves.
We focused a lot on talking about Black culture and redefining womanhood. We identified that the chapters progress through Beyoncé's healing journey.
Yes, this healing journey also refers to her mental health.
It is clear that Beyoncé falls into a state of depression.
Throughout Lemonade, it shows her rising from the rubble as not only forgiving others in society, but also herself. This is what leads to her empowerment and ultimately stabilizes her mental health.
After all, depression is the 4th stage of the 5 stages of grief.
And we know that she is indeed grieving all that society has stripped blacks of, the personal pains in her life and the idea of losing herself and inner child.
She regains control of this and becomes more in tune with herself, preventing her from living numbly.
Ultimately, she is ready to move forward and create a new world as an emboldening black woman. With the woman convening, it is a temporary retreat that recharges.
Beyoncé not only redefines herself, but she redefines and rebirths what it means to be a black woman. She breaks boundaries to make an empowering statement on womanhood and create a rally cry for all black women working to feel true liberation in America.